All right, what if I told you that one of the most important doctrines in Christianity was defined in large part by a friendship? Seriously, we're going to go back, way back, like 1700 years, to uncover the story of two guys whose incredible partnership didn't just inspire people, it literally shaped the core beliefs of Christianity as we know it today. Just listen to this. They shared a single-minded goal, the pursuit of virtue and the study of God. I mean, wow, that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? This wasn't just, a regular friendship. It was a shared mission, a higher purpose. And that purpose? Well, it was about to lead them to defend their faith against a crisis that was threatening to tear the whole thing apart from the inside out. So here's how we're going to break this story down. First, we'll look at this legendary friendship. Then we'll dive into the crisis that the church was facing. We'll see how these two stepped up as defenders of the faith, how they forged the idea of the Trinity, and finally, we'll uncover an enduring legacy that, you might be surprised, still impacts us today. All right, let's dive into part 1, a legendary friendship. It's time to meet our 4th century intellectual power duo, the men of the hour, St. Basil the Great and St. Gregory Nazianzen. Their story starts in a place a lot of us can relate to. School. They were students together in Athens, which back then was basically the intellectual hub of the entire world. And they just clicked. But their connection was way deeper than just studying for exams. They were united by something much bigger, this shared, intense desire to understand God and to live virtuous lives. And what made them such a perfect team was that their skills were so complementary. It was kind of like a perfect partnership. On one hand, you had Basil the architect. This guy was a man of action. He didn't just talk, he built things. He established rules for monks that are still used today, and he created this incredibly charitable complex for the poor called the Basiliad. Then, on the other hand, you had Gregory the theologian. He was a man of words, an absolutely brilliant speaker and a poet who could take these incredibly deep, mysterious ideas about faith and just make them make sense. He could articulate things nobody else could. Okay, so this amazing friendship is forming, but at the exact same time, something else is happening. And that brings us to part 2, a church in crisis. A single, powerful idea was starting to spread, and it threatened to tear the early church completely apart. So what was this big, scary idea? It was called Arianism. And the core belief was pretty simple, but also pretty radical. It basically said that Jesus wasn't fully God. Sure, he was a created being, super powerful, super holy, absolutely. But ultimately, he was lesser than God the Father. And look, this wasn't some minor theological squabble. This struck at the absolute heart of the Christian faith. I mean, think about the implications here. If Jesus isn't divine, then what does that mean for everything else? For salvation, for the whole point of Christianity? The stakes, honestly, could not have been higher. This was the theological battle of the 4th century. And this is where our heroes re-enter the story. Part 3, Defenders of the Faith. With the church in total turmoil, these two friends decided to stand together, right in the middle of the storm. And let's be clear, this was not just some friendly academic debate. No way. As the main defenders of the traditional faith, they faced intense political persecution. We're talking emperors and powerful bishops coming after them. But even when they had their own disagreements, and they did, they stayed united in that one core mission, to steer the church back to what they believed was the truth. So how did they actually do it? How did they fight back? Well, that brings us to part 4, forging the Trinity. See, their greatest weapon wasn't a sword or an army, it was language. They were about to find the perfect words to explain one of the faith's deepest mysteries. They zeroed in on one absolutely crucial word, consubstantial. Now, I know, it sounds super technical, but it's actually pretty simple. It just means of the same substance, or of the same essence. By insisting that Jesus was consubstantial with the Father, they made it crystal clear. Jesus isn't some lesser being. He is fully God, equal to the Father in every single way. This one word basically dismantled the entire Arian argument. It was a game changer. And all of this work was absolutely instrumental in clarifying the doctrine of the Holy Trinity. The belief in one God as 3 divine persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Now, to be clear, they didn't invent this idea. It had been around. But what they did was give the church the precise, bulletproof language it needed to finally define it and defend it for all time. And that brings us to our final section, an enduring legacy. So you might be thinking, okay, interesting history lesson, but why does a theological debate from 1700 years ago still matter today? Well, let's connect the dots. Here's the direct connection, and it might just blow your mind. If you've ever been to a Christian church service, chances are you've heard or even said the Nicene Creed. You know that line about Jesus being consubstantial with the Father? Yep, that's them. The very words that were forged in the fire of this 4th century crisis are still being recited by millions and millions of people all over the world every single week. I mean, their impact is just immense when you stop and think about it. Basil's rules, they still guide monks in the East. His Basiliad, it became a blueprint for hospitals and social charity. And together they defined the Orthodox doctrine of the Trinity, they shaped the creed we say today, and they gave us this incredible model of what a real, powerful Christian friendship can accomplish. And that really brings us right back to where we started, doesn't it? It's just this powerful reminder that all of these history-making achievements, their incredible theology, their holiness, their courage, it was all nurtured and strengthened by one thing: a deep, authentic friendship that was rooted in a shared love for God and for the truth. So their story kind of leaves us with a big question, one for our own lives. Basil and Gregory stood up against the crisis of their day to defend what they knew was an essential truth. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In our own time, with all of our own unique challenges, what truths are we called to defend?